Just like we need observatories to explore the universe, we need observatories to explore the brain. The Allen Brain Observatories project, OpenScope, aims to replicate the successes of large astronomy observatories. Like huge telescopes peering into the night sky in quest of infinitely large worlds to explore, OpenScope peers into the mind in quest of infinitely small mechanisms to discover. Please welcome Jérôme Lecoq from the Allen Institute.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present our work. I'm thankful for the organizer and I've been very impressed with the organization so far. So today I want to talk about the Allen Brain Observatory and our efforts to make them available to the community at large. I'll start with, whoops, next slide, please. I'll start with a little bit of a rationale as to why we wanted to do this. And then we'll go on with how we built the observatory and talk about the OpenScope platform at the end of the talk. Next slide, please. So a working hypothesis for why we will need observatory in neuroscience, and I think I don't need to convince this audience, but it's fairly apparent that a large number of in vivo experiments are required to understand how the brain works. And this caused data standardization, data integration issues. And so we'll need, as a field, to find a solution to this problem. In addition, it's also apparent that a large number of experiments are duplicated across experimental lab. And they are actually rarely or difficult to integrate with one another. And so what we think is an observatory model will synergize these three main communities: the experimental, the technical, and the theoretical neuroscience community. I'm seeing the... Okay. So we first looked at the fields that were successful in making this integration, and in the next slide I'll show you an examples from the astronomy, in particular the Keck telescope, and so you'll see that a single observatory in neuroscience is able to have a tremendous publication output, and this is shown on the right. As you see from this telescope, the number of publications coming from the Keck telescope over the years. And so we all hope as a field is to replicate this success, but a lot of work is needed to do that. The first thing you need to realize is what is our goal as a field is to understand how the brain processes information. And in particular, this question is how is sensory information represented and processed in the cortex? To achieve and to answer that question, you need an animal model, a behavior task, and many of behavior tasks to interrogate the brain. And you need to dive deeper into how each component of the brain is processing and making that function. So a typical pipeline in neuroscience has this surgical components where you need to give access to the tissue. And so this slide shows you how we built the Allen Brain Observatory around this idea. So the first block, you see that you have to integrate surgery, followed by a brain mapping. So essentially, to locate each brain area, you need to know where you are. And then you need to build up upon the behavior task on top of that model. And so we build a pipeline to record the activity of the brain in very standardized condition. And then once we have recorded the activity, we reconstruct the brain in 3D and realign it to our coordinate system at the Allen Institute. This pipeline here is an example data set produced by this pipeline. So you see an animal on the left and a typical 400 micron by 400 micron field of view in the middle, followed by more details on the behavior task. In this example is a high tracking. These are a snapshot of our pipeline at the Allen Institute. So you see it really looks much more like a factory than the typical academic lab. On the top left is an image of the surgery suite at the Allen, with also over a snapshot of the intrinsic imaging, the mapping part, and 2-photon and serial 2-photon tomography at the bottom. So this pipeline has been functioning, and we set it up with a lot of standardization. And so in many of the slides, you'll have additional information at the bottom. But this is a coordinate system that we built that allows to position each recording area very precisely based on the eyesight coordinates. And you can get more information in the publication on how this is done. As a result, we can achieve high throughput. This came from a recent study, a survey of the activity of the visual cortex, where we used the data coming from hundreds of mice to build our data set. And we have a precise knowledge of what happened to every animal, why they had problems, and how we fixed them. So this allowed to achieve standardization. So we designed our first survey around the visual cortex, looking at the response of neurons to a very standardized visual stimulus, and sort of characterize the visual properties of neurons across the visual cortex to a standardized stimulus. And we built our data across many different query lines, trying to understand how each individual layer and different part of the visual cortex process information. This was made available to the entire community through 4 data releases in the last few years. And they were made available also through a website with very nice visualization tool built by our technology team. And importantly, programming tools. This is very key to observatory, programming access to standardized data located on the cloud. So everyone can actually download our Python interface to the dataset. And indeed, this has actually been used tremendously by the community. This is an already outdated list of publications that were made using our own data. We've worked lately to extend this platform by adding behavior capacities. So in the following year, we'll have a behavior task. It's a detection of change. An animal is asked to recognize one visual stimulus from another and respond when it detected a change. So this image just highlight how this is working, and the mouse is responding with black dots. Each black dot is a lick at the moment of a change in green. So this data will be made available. So we're just extending this platform with also the addition of multi-layer 2-photon imaging, so that you can actually look at the coordinate activity in multiple layers and areas of the visual cortex. And you can get more information in the publication below. We are currently also adding electrophysiology. So Neuropixel recording are tremendous tools to look at spike related activity. And so a big team has been working towards making freely available data using Neuropixel data using the same task. And finally, a byproduct of this huge standardization in this platform is a very recent result using machine learning. So because our data is so standardized, we can use it to leverage it to learn very rich and complex denoising model. And in this publication, we show that you can actually use that to remove shot noise from 2-photon imaging, as well as improve Neuropixel output. And I believe that the outcome of observatory neuroscience could also be in the machine learning realm by allowing standardization of data set and training very efficient denoising models. And this is an example video where shot noise was essentially removed from one of our own recording, and we made the model available. So now I want to talk a little bit about OpenScope and our effort to sort of share this platform. Obviously, you understand, as a community, we need to make our best effort to make progress. And we believe that observatory could be the missing link between the different part of a community. As you see on this picture, on the left, you have individual labs that are performing very targeted and efficient research, but they sometimes are isolated from one another. And we think the observatory could link dataset and community that are performing experiments. On the right, you see an example person doing analysis, and even if they are not doing experiment, they can get insightful discoveries by accessing data from other labs. And we think observatory could connect this group of people around a centerpiece. And so our goal with OpenScope was to make this observatory more available so that it can become this community that link different groups together. So we designed the project around a 2-year process. Essentially, our goal was to create a marketplace of idea. So people could submit proposal to our observatory, and then the best idea will be selected based on a blind review. Then our project management at the Allen Institute kick in, and we start to do some project planning in the first year. First round of pilot to test the main idea of the study. The team will deploy new visual stimuli, and in the future year, perhaps new behavior. And we'll go on to collect data very quickly. And the following year, the data is delivered to the team, and they do a data analysis on this, and we iterate with them and provide support. So this is the idea behind OpenScope, is to open a platform. In the last few years, we've conducted 6 projects following that model. This has been mostly pilots to see if there is interest in the field to do this. Some of these are actually coming from Montreal now, and we had sort of a tremendous success working with them. But in the next few slides, since the data is still, the analysis is still going, and they are actually now working towards publication, I want to talk a little bit about what we learned opening the observatory. The first thing we learned is that these projects benefit from the Allen Institute infrastructure. It achieves speed, higher standardization and quality, and also better coordination between the different parts of the project. So this was a big benefit of running OpenScope. Still, I think, and this is a problem of the field as a whole, moving large data set is still a challenge. We still had to chip hard drives initially, trying to solve this problem. But I think moving to the cloud completely is an essential piece of having observatory to work. And this will also help data analysis because there's a fair amount of duplication in data analysis between groups. And so having a center cloud infrastructure to do analysis that is available and providing tools to all the different teams is an essential piece of observatories, I believe, in the future. Also, education and support is important. I think having a community around the observatory will be essential for the success of this model. And finally, I'd like to finish with a few notes on how to design observatory that are integrated with our communities. I think there are 3 main groups of community in neuroscience. There's the experimental community, the theoretical community, and the neurotechnology community that are developing tools. And as you build new platform, as this platform mature in the field and we build more and more of them, I think it's essential to have these 3 groups of people integrated from the start. So you want science, the community, and the funding to be together, and have the neurotechnology community provide access to a new tool. So they sort of provide the seed to the observatory, but they need to be met by experimental needs and scientific needs from the theoretical community. And as the project mature, dedicated staff support the platform in collaboration with both the experimental and the theoretical community. But we also need to think about the life cycle. This observatory will have probably a 10-year life cycle, given the length of technology and neuroscience. And so the dedicated staff that is working the observatory will need to move to the next observatory effort, so that we can take care of our people. I think it's a really important aspect of observatory. And we also should keep in mind that the data will have a continuous use. It will survive the observatory being used later. And so care must be put into the life cycle of both the people, the observatory, and the data. And here I provide a couple of examples of observatory that could be built in the coming years: full dorsal cortex recording, anatomical reconstruction, as well as large-scale behavioral characterization and cell type taxonomy. So these are tools available that could become essential piece of the progress in neuroscience. To conclude, I hope I've shown you that we've built a high throughput data science pipeline for reproducible, standardized, and efficient data generation. This allows to create standardized map of functional response that are now freely available and used by the community. And OpenScope is our effort to open this platform to the community. And in the future, will keep working to push the platform and extend it with new capabilities. To finish, I want to make sure to thank, this could not have been done without tremendous work from at least 100 people at the Allen Institute. So it's impossible to thank everyone, but this is really teamwork at our core. And also it benefited essentially from Paul and vision from the beginning. And we're actually seeing now the impact of this on our field. Thank you.